After the order from the Supreme Court, the Central Bureau of Investigation has begun its probe into the Sushant Singh Rajput death case. This probe comes over 60 days after the late actor was found dead at his Bandra residence. A CBI team has reached Mumbai to probe the case. The images of the officers leaving the airport on your screen right now. India Today's Munish Pandey, who tracks the CBI, has been able to scoop exclusive details of the CBI's action plan now that their team is in Mumbai. This is our lead story tonight.
A day after the go-ahead from the Supreme Court, the Central Bureau of Investigation has begun its probe into one of the most high-profile cases in the recent times, the death of Sushant Singh Rajput. The CBI team, which will probe the case, went into a huddle at its Delhi headquarters on Thursday. India Today has accessed details of the CBI action plan. The team will first try to establish whether it is a murder case or suicide. For this, the team of CBI officers will visit the crime spot and examine it. This will be followed by the forensic examination of the crime scene and a study of autopsy report. The CBI Special Investigation Team will also be availing the help of the Technical, Forensic and Coordination Unit of the CBI. The crime scene will also be recreated. Insiders tell India Today the CBI will also grill Sushant's girlfriend Rhea Chakraborty, her family, his staff and flatmates. Sources say the CBI has formally contacted the Mumbai police. A DIG in the CBI has been appointed as the nodal officer between the agency and Mumbai police. According to the sources, more than half a dozen statements have already been recorded by the CBI on Sushant's finances. Meanwhile, the ED has also intensified its probe into the 15 crore rupees that allegedly was siphoned off from Sushant's bank accounts. The ED has summoned filmmaker Rumi Jaffrey, who was trying to cast Sushant and Rhea in his movie. The filmmaker will also be questioned on contracts with Sushant Singh Rajput and the amount he has paid for the film.
The Central Bureau of Investigation has till date investigated a handful of cases in which the accused were booked for abetment of suicide. But the Federal Probe Agency was unable to get conviction in even a single case. Sources say that proving abetment of suicide charges on any accused is the most difficult task for any agency. With camera person Pradeep Gupta, this is Munish Pandey in Delhi for India Today.
I want to go across live to Saurabh Bakhtania. He's at the Mumbai airport, which is where that CBI team landed. Saurabh is one of Mumbai's finest crime reporters, and he's tracking the CBI's investigations from here on. Saurabh, what details can you give us about whether the CBI's team will get into action right away tonight itself, or will they wait at least till tomorrow? And what are the first things they intend to do now that they're in Mumbai?
See, Rahul, first thing which they are going to do is they have straight headed to the CBI headquarters at BKC. Now there will be a meeting between the Mumbai CBI officials and the Delhi team which has just arrived. Now, very importantly, Rahul, the Mumbai police has done a long investigation in this whole case. They never wanted to give this case to CBI. They were in no mood to give this particular case to CBI. They wanted to investigate it. So the whole investigation, the documentation which the Mumbai police had done was in Marathi. So all those documentation will be now converted into English, so the CBI can head on into. So all those documentation, all those paperwork will be analyzed. If the CBI wants to question the witnesses again in the case, they will be questioned. Now the most important will be to examine the crime scene. And the first time when the CBI officials and Mumbai police officials meet head to head, when they meet each other, the meeting which happens between the both teams, that will be very important. We have been told by our sources that there was an informal meeting which happened yesterday. Therefore, the CBI senior officer, Suez Haq, is the nodal officer who will be communicating between the CBI and the Mumbai police official. Remember, Suez Haq was earlier with the Maharashtra police officer. He was the SP of Palghar. So he will be a better person to communicate between the both agencies. Now, first important will be to examine the crime scene. Now, the crime crime scene has now already been contaminated because there are several people who have went inside the house. So they will examine and reinvestigate the whole case. Like they will do a dummy test at how actually the suicide took place. They also have a forensic expert team who will be heading straight to the Cooper Hospital where actually the postmortem took place. They will also be talking to the FSL of Kalina, which is in Mumbai, where the other reports are right now being investigated. So it is a long procedure. When we spoke to off camera with some of the CBI officials, they clearly told us that it is not going to be an easy task for them because already 60 days have passed. They have to do lot of investigation and they are prepared for it. They won't be quarantined because BMC has earlier exempted them from quarantine. So from tomorrow right morning, Rahul, they will be first heading to the Mumbai police officials. They will speak to them, take over the documentation. One team will go to the crime scene, investigate, and the other team have prepared the list of witnesses who will be questioned in the whole case. But they are ready for it because it is not going to be such an easy task for the CBI.
Okay, Saurabh, stay with us. We'll come back to you in just a moment. And because the CBI has now started probing the Sushant Singh Rajput case, it's also put the Maharashtra government and the Maha-Vikas Aghadi alliance on the back foot. Cracks have emerged within the National Congress Party, which are now out in the open. Because on the one side, you've got Sharad Pawar questioning the need for a CBI probe. He's come out and said that this shouldn't go down the way of the Narendra Dabholkar investigation where nothing has come despite years having passed. On the other side, you've got his own grandnephew, Parth Pawar, who's come out and said Satyamev Jayate, and Parth is the son of Ajit Pawar, and therefore questions are being asked about whether the NCP once again in public, not just is it fighting, could it be heading potentially towards another split? The Aghadi government though is trying to put up a brave face after this setback. Take a look.
The CBI probe into Sushant Singh Rajput's death is seeing a political fallout in Maharashtra. NCP Supremo Sharad Pawar and his grandnephew Parth are at loggerheads over CBI taking over the investigation. Maharashtra Deputy Chief Minister Ajit Pawar's son Parth welcomed the Supreme Court verdict on handling the case to the CBI, a demand made by the Bihar government. On Thursday, NCP founder Sharad Pawar expressed apprehensions over the central agency probe. Pawar said he hoped that the investigation does not meet the same fate as the Narendra Dabholkar case probe, which remains unsolved since the past 6 years. Pawar's remarks evoked strong reactions from the BJP.
महाराष्ट्र सरकार के कद्दावर नेता सुशांत सिंह राजपूत के मामले को दाभोलकर मामले के साथ जोड़ करके यह स्पष्ट उनकी मानसिकता दर्शाती है कि वे मन से इस मामले को सीबीआई को नहीं सौंपना चाहते.
Amid jibes from the BJP, the Maha Aghadi government has tried to put up a brave front despite a clear setback in the Supreme Court.
सुप्रीम कोर्ट का जो सुशांत सिंह के केस के बारे में जो निर्णय आया है उसका हम स्वागत करते हैं. जो भी सीबीआई को सहकार्य लगेगा वो पूरा सहकार्य पूरा कॉपरेशन राज्य शासन देगी. सुप्रीम कोर्ट के जजमेंट में जो ऑब्जर्वेशन है उसमें साफ साफ सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने लिखा है कि मुंबई पुलिस ने जो सुशांत सिंह के केस का जो इन्वेस्टिगेशन किया उसमें बड़े प्रोफेशनली किया. कोई भी दोष वो इन्वेस्टिगेशन में नहीं है.
सुशांत सिंह की जांच के लिए अब सीबीआई की टीम मुंबई आएगी. मैं आशा रखता हूं कि अब की बार मुंबई पुलिस कमिश्नर और मुंबई म्युनिसिपल कमिश्नर मुख्यमंत्री कार्यालय के पर्सनल सेक्रेटरी की तरह बिहेव नहीं करेंगे और कोऑपरेट करेंगे.
The Maharashtra government, which opposed the CBI probe in the apex court, is now calling the verdict a victory for Sushant's girlfriend Rhea Chakraborty.
रिया चक्रवर्ती ने जो मांग की थी वो कोर्ट ने मंजूर कर ली है. इसका मतलब अगर कोई जीता है तो रिया चक्रवर्ती जीती है.
The Uddhav Thackeray government is on the back foot after Supreme Court verdict on Sushant Singh Rajput case, which the BJP is claiming as victory. Split between Pawar family has made matters worse. With camera person Mangesh Amre, Mustafa Sheikh in Mumbai for India Today.
The CBI team that's probing this case has been broken into three parts so that three different angles can be probed at the same time. You've got one team that will look at the documents of the case diary, the photographs, the crime scene, the autopsy report. You've got a second team which will be looking at the whole angle about professional rivalry, Bollywood celebrities, Sushant's post-mortem doctors in the case, and a third team that will interrogate Rhea Chakraborty. And Munish Pandey, who tracks the CBI for us, has been speaking to officials at the CBI headquarters in Delhi, where there were long meetings to work out the CBI strategy. Munish, how confident is the Central Bureau of Investigation that they will be able to crack this case? Because the entire country's eyes are currently on the CBI. More than 2 months have lapsed since this death happened. Are they confident that they'll be able to find what happened, whether this is a case of death through murder or suicide? Or could this go down the route of the Arushi Talwar or the Jia Khan case, where the investigation drags on and nothing concrete really emerges at the end?
Well, Rahul, at this point of time, I have been given to understand is that in today's meeting at the CBI headquarters in Delhi, it was about the direction of the investigation and the priorities of the Central Bureau of Investigation while they will be probing this case. As of now, I've been given to understand is that the priority of the CBI will be to find whether it's a case of murder or suicide. The case has been booked, the case is under section 306, that is abetment of suicide. But what CBI maintains that it doesn't matter under what section the FIR has been lodged. Their first priority will be to find out whether it's a case of murder or suicide. And to find that, the crucial link is going to be the crime scene, which has been tampered. So that is why the forensic team has already reached Mumbai. They will be taking help of the doctors and they will recreate the crime scene to understand that what went wrong on that unfortunate day, whether it was a case of suicide or it was a case of murder. Only after getting to know and getting the opinion that it's a case of suicide, they will move in the direction of abetment of suicide. But Rahul, again, this is going to be very crucial because till date, CBI has not got a single conviction in any abetment of suicide case, because what the officials told me that in any suicide case, the intention of the accused is going to be very important, and proving the intention of the accused that the person wanted this person to commit suicide is going to be something for which gathering evidence is going to be very, very crucial. That is why CBI at this point of time is very tight-lipped. They are saying that we will probe the case completely afresh. It doesn't matter what Bihar police has got, what Mumbai police has got. But during our investigation, if something comes up against Rhea Chakraborty, then only she will be arrested. As of now, they'll be only probing the allegations in this case.
Thanks, Munish, for that update. The focus now is on Rhea Chakraborty. And we've had the lawyer of Sushant Singh Rajput's family, Vikas Singh, come out and tell India Today that he believes that the first thing that the CBI should do is to go out and arrest Rhea. Now, that's a very controversial thing because the CBI hasn't really probed the case so far. Should they probe, establish evidence, see if there was any malfeasance on the part of Rhea and then arrest her if that's required at all? Or take her into custody because now the forensic evidence is already largely lost, start probing her tough and hard and then establish whether or not this was a case of plain suicide or something more sinister. Here's how the lawyers are looking at this story.
Rhea Chakraborty, actor, Sushant Singh Rajput's girlfriend, charged with abetment to suicide, theft and cheating. She's now at the center of the CBI investigation. From first demanding a CBI probe to then seeking a transfer, Rhea Chakraborty has no choice now but to face the CBI. And the only question now is, will she be arrested? And if yes, then on what grounds? Charge, abetment to suicide. It's a charge that's difficult to prove, and an arrest can be made only when the CBI gets credible evidence. Charge, wrongful confinement. The Bihar police FIR accuses Rhea of wrongful confinement of Sushant Singh Rajput. The late actor's family claims that Rhea kept Sushant at a resort for 3 months and blocked him from meeting his family. But arrest on wrongful confinement charge can happen only if confinement of Sushant by Rhea is substantiated. Charge criminal intimidation. Rhea is accused of threatening Sushant in the days leading up to his death. She allegedly told Sushant that she would make his mental health reports public and tell the press that he was mad. Again, a charge that's difficult to prove. The other big charge against Rhea Chakraborty is that she allegedly siphoned off Sushant Singh Rajput's finances. The actor has already been summoned and grilled twice by the Enforcement Directorate, and sources say that her statements have been inconsistent. Charge cheating. If the CBI is able to uncover the money trail and get evidence that Rhea cheated Sushant financially, that makes easy ground for arrest. Charge theft. Similarly, if it's proven that Rhea transferred money from Sushant's accounts or was controlling his finances without his knowledge, that too could lead to her immediate arrest. Charge criminal breach of trust. If the CBI is able to prove that it was Rhea who broke Sushant's trust and drove him to alleged suicide, as claimed by Sushant's father, that's a solid reason for arrest.
All the eyes are now on the CBI. A lot of its investigation will focus on Rhea Chakraborty, but whether the actress will be arrested or not will depend upon the evidence which the Federal Probe Agency is able to gather. With camera person Vikas Gupta, this is Munish Pandey in Delhi for India Today.
So we've got Daljit Singh joining us. He's an advocate, practices across different high courts and in the Supreme Court. We've got Vikas Gupta joining us as well. Now, Daljit Singh's view is that the first thing the CBI needs to do is to arrest Rhea Chakraborty, and that's the only way they'll be able to get to the bottom of what really happened that fateful night. And you got Vikas Gupta, whose point of view is completely the contrarian, which is that there is no case for arrest, not at this stage at least. So Daljit, I'll start with you. Explain to our viewers, because we had last night on the show the lawyer of Sushant Singh Rajput's family, Vikas Singh, tell us that the first thing, even before they get down to probing this case, the CBI needs to do is to arrest Rhea Chakraborty, and you share that view. Explain why is that?
See, normally arrest is supposed to be the last option. But in this case, there has been an efflux of nearly 66 days by the time CBI has come into the case. Now they are against the wall. In fact, it is not only Rhea Chakraborty, but they'll have to arrest all the other people who are accused. People who were with Sushant Singh Rajput on the day of the alleged suicide. Now, second thing is that custodial interrogation is more result-oriented. Now, they don't have the luxury of time. Everything is contaminated. The crime scene is contaminated. It is a case which is based on circumstantial evidence. From the circumstances, it is very clear that Rhea Chakraborty was a part of the larger conspiracy to murder Sushant Singh Rajput. In fact, I'm really surprised as to why this case was moving in the direction of abetment to suicide, when right from day one, it was a clear-cut case of murder, at least on the face of it. Now, even the FIR which has been lodged by the father of Sushant Singh Rajput should not have been for abetment to suicide, but should have been for murder. Now, coming back to your question again, as to why she should be arrested, look at the circumstances. She's a person who changes the entire staff which was working in the house of Sushant Singh Rajput. She's the person who has gained financially. She insulated Sushant Singh Rajput from his immediate family. On 8th of June 2020, she packs her bags and she goes away as if she was aware of what is to follow. On the very next day, Disha commits suicide, allegedly. 4 days after that, Sushant Singh comes down on 14th, has a glass of juice at 10 o'clock, and thereafter all these people are trying to bang at his door at 10:30. He's not opening. Subsequently, the same staff which has been put by Rhea Chakraborty calls for a locksmith and the sister to come over. They did not have the wherewithal to break a door and go inside if he was not answering, as if they were aware of what was there across the door. Look at the way the crime scene has absolutely contaminated. Absolutely contaminated. From the pictures that one has seen, Sushant Singh has a major injury on the left side of the forehead. He has a black mark under the eye. Now, this black mark is nothing but blood graduating from this injury down, which, as per medical doctors, takes approximately 15 to 20 hours. And then they are saying that 10 o'clock he had his juice, 11:30 he was already gone, and they opened the door after 2 hours. Now the CBI has to carry out custodial interrogation of everybody because 66 valuable days have already gone by. If they want to crack the case, it is not only Rhea Chakraborty, even the servants, even the friends, everybody has to be taken into custody and custodial interrogation has to be carried out, which is established is more result-oriented, which is the need of the hour today.
Okay, I'm going to get
CBI
Vikas Gupta to counter that, because you're basically suggesting that if they go as if this was a normal case, it will turn out to be a blind case because 66 days have passed already. The way to get action and results at the earliest is to take everyone into custody, which requires them to be arrested, probe them hard, and then see if the truth can emerge. Vikas Gupta, you disagree strongly with the line that Daljit is advocating. Why do you believe this is a very flawed and dangerous strategy?
Rahul, if I may begin with that, if it's a case of a circumstantial evidence, it is not at all a case of circumstantial evidence. And why I say so, if you recollect, Zia Khan's case was a circumstantial case because there was nobody else present in the apartment when the alleged suicide took place in Zia Khan's matter. Here in Sushant's matter, there were 4 other people present in the apartment. So it is not a case of a circumstantial evidence at all. That's point number 1. The power to arrest and the need to arrest are 2 different things. If they want to take the statements of all the 4 people who were in the apartment, if there is any contradictions, they can. There are various methods that is available with CBI to contradict or to make them sit, to confront them. There is absolutely no need for Rhea Chakraborty's custodial interrogation at this point in time, unless until they come across any other material. You know, your reporter was going through about the breach of trust and the cheating aspect. I'll tell you one thing. ED has been examining, interrogating Rhea for last 2.5 weeks. She appeared before the ED on 3 occasions, if not more, if I recollect getting it from the press and electronic media. Money trail is something, Rahul, they are not professional criminals. If they are, as you presume to be, as media is trying to make out Rhea Chakraborty accused and guilty also, even before a trial commences, or even, I may say so, even before investigation starts. So money would always be with trail. That can be established within 24 hours. It's been almost 2.5 weeks. ED has not come across anything. Otherwise, had they come across any money trail of the alleged 15 crore siphoning off, I think she would have been arrested by ED.
Okay, let Daljit Singh counter that, because your strongest argument is that this is when the probe hasn't even started. If you go out and arrest them, take them into custodial interrogation, it almost seems to suggest that the CBI would then be approaching the case with a predetermined mind. And instead of examining all angles and seeing the truth that emerges from the probe, you're going in, imagining that Rhea is indeed guilty, that this is indeed a case of murder, go out and get her and lock her up. Would that even be a fair way to probe this case?
See, I agree with him that it is straight law that power of arrest and necessity of arrest, these work in 2 different compartments. Now we have to see what is the necessity of arrest at this juncture. CBI coming in after 66 days, in the circumstances that we have seen in this case, they will not be able to proceed ahead till the time they lock these guys in custodial interrogation. Now, coming on to the point which my friend is making with regard to it not being a case of circumstantial evidence, all the 4 people who were there in the house, I suspect that they are going to be turned into accused persons. Because ultimately it is Rhea Chakraborty who was instrumental in getting the servants there, and the kind of a story which the servants have given, that 10:30 he came, had a glass of juice, and 11:30 he was gone, and we were knocking on the doors, and there's nothing in the postmortem which has come that there was juice in his stomach. In fact, the postmortem report does not even have the full body photographs, which is very normal in a case like this. And inquest report under 174 Mumbai police carrying it out for the last 66 days, it is basically designed to see what are the injury marks, what are the weapons which have been used. Apart from that, they are going in the direction of nepotism. So this, as you can see, it's a very large conspiracy where some big people are involved. That is why it is going in that direction. If CBI needs to crack this, the entire nation is looking towards CBI to be able to crack it. But I don't think they'll be able to crack it unless and until they can arrest these people and put them through sustained interrogation. Now, let us say that they were to take them into custodial interrogation, take police remand, carry out custodial interrogation, nothing comes out, then thereafter they can even, these people can take bail. But if time is wasted now, which already it has been wasted, I think it is going to be a very big disappointment for the nation, because CBI by itself can't do anything if the circumstances are as they are in this case. Like they were
you what
in the
Vikas
case of
Singh, the
Arushi.
lawyer of Sushant Singh Rajput's family, told us when we spoke to him, and he's the one who pressed for the CBI to go out and arrest Rhea Chakraborty and take her into custody first, so that they can then start by asking her the questions which he believes will establish whether or not this is a case of suicide or murder. Here is Vikas Singh. Rhea Chakraborty should be arrested as soon as possible. That's what you said. So why are you asking for Rhea's arrest? Should you not instead ask for the CBI to probe with an open mind, see where that investigation takes them, and then ultimately to the question of whether Rhea needs to be arrested or not?
As far as the arrest is concerned, Rahul, the jurisprudence in this country is not that there has to be an investigation before an arrest. The jurisprudence in this country is that it is a complete discretion of the police in which cases it will go for an arrest straight away on the registration of an FIR, and in which case it will do an investigation and decide for arrest. In my view, in this case, the averments in the FIR are itself sufficient for the police to go and arrest. So I'll be very happy if a new jurisprudence is laid in this country that every time the police has to arrest, it has to do a preliminary investigation.
Now, the argument that's being made, Vikas Gupta, is that if you see what happened in the Jia Khan case, if you see what happened in the Arushi case and other such similar cases, despite the attention that is paid initially, once time drags on, no conclusive leads emerge, and proving the case in a court of law turns out to be difficult. Therefore, Daljit Singh, Vikas Singh, others are arguing for a more aggressive line of interrogation and investigation.
So, Rahul, the complainant can be the last person to ask for a custodial interrogation. You know, they can't decide the course of investigation, how it has to be investigated. They can only lodge a FIR, spell out the allegations, the offences that has been committed, and no further. That's point number one. Point number two, here there is absolutely no need. Why I'm saying so, which I said earlier also, Rhea was not there at the time of the offence. She had left on 8th. She's come back on 14th. There is no allegation. And even if you look at the contents of the FIR, which Mr. Vikas Singh says, it in itself makes out a case for custodial interrogation. It talks of 406, 420, which is a financial offence. They don't talk about murder. They only talk about abetment to suicide. And in abetment to suicide, it has to be coupled with aiding and instigating somebody to commit. So if, assuming for a moment she was not there from 8th till 14th on the date when the alleged offence took place, the offence of abetment to suicide doesn't stand on its own legs. So just because you want her to be arrested, that cannot be the ground. And I know one thing, Rahul, CBI are not going to take the lawyer's advice or the complainant's advice in determining when they have to arrest the person. And one more, what Mr. Vikas Singh said, that there is no jurisprudence that preliminary investigation has to be conducted. Let me tell you one thing. Preliminary investigation is conducted before the registration of the FIR. Here, the RC in parlance in CBI of a FIR is a RC. RC has been registered and it is no longer a preliminary investigation. It is an investigation. It is up to CBI whether to collect enough material which leads to arrest or not to arrest her.
Okay, I want to build on this point for a moment, because remember, proving that a particular person's actions led someone to commit suicide and that person is guilty of abetment is easy to allege but difficult to prove. What we did is we went through the Central Bureau of Investigation's track record, looked at similar cases, went through their case files to bring you this report about why it is in a court of law. Remember, this in the end is not a media trial. You have to find the evidence which you can use to secure a conviction if that evidence can be found. So proving abetment to suicide in a court of law is exceedingly complex, and the CBI has not so sterling record when it comes to being able to prove this inside a courtroom. Here's why.
देखिए, शुरू दिन से हम ये कहते रहे हैं और राष्ट्रीय जनता दल पहली पार्टी है जिसने सीबीआई जांच की मांग की थी। सीबीआई से जांच कराई जाए, चला जाए सीबीआई केस, कोई दिक्कत नहीं, हम सहयोग करेंगे।
यही का आग्रह करेंगे उद्धव ठाकरे जी से भी कि इसको सीधा जो है सीबीआई के हाथ जांच के लिए उनको डिमांड कर देना चाहिए।
Sought emphatically, censored fiercely, even called a caged parrot once. The CBI has just got a new high-profile case to investigate. The controversial death of actor Sushant Singh Rajput and alleged misappropriation. The Central Investigation Agency has a decent conviction record to project. Almost 70% of cases it probed resulted in conviction last year. But the CBI's performance hasn't always been sterling in every high-profile investigation. Actor Rhea Khan's death, the only other big Bollywood probe it took over in 2014, hasn't delivered any conviction so far.
The Central Bureau of Investigation has till date investigated a handful of cases in which the accused were booked for abetment of suicide. But the Federal Probe Agency was unable to get conviction in even a single case. Sources say that proving abetment of suicide charges on any accused is the most difficult task for any agency.
Rhea Khan was found dead on 3rd of June 2013 in her Juhu home, hanging from a ceiling fan. A 6-page suicide note named boyfriend Suraj Pancholi. He was taken into custody and granted bail. The CBI filed a charge sheet in 2015, terming the actor's death a suicide and accusing Suraj Pancholi of abetment. But then the Special Women's Court pulled up the prosecutors for not producing sufficient evidence.
They were pressurized, they were put up political pressure. A Bollywood icon telling CBI officer, don't interrogate him, don't ask him questions. You know, we are launching him, we have put a lot of money over him. So obviously you can influence one officer, but you cannot influence the entire CBI institute. She will get justice. Justice is not a human game. Justice is God's. She will get justice. And I have full faith and hope.
On his part, defendant Suraj Pancholi alleges he has been victimized.
I have been in court since I was 21 years old. Today I am 29. Since 8 years, I have been trying to fight my battle in court legally. I have won 2 defamation cases against Rhea Khan, but she's sitting in London, is still giving interviews, but she has no courage to show up in court and fight the case against me.
The resemblance in the 2 cases is undeniably uncanny. Over to the CBI once again. Bureau Report, India Today.
Daljit Singh, would you accept this report that we just put out? The track record of the CBI shows, and even if you leave the CBI aside for a moment, look at other state police forces proving abetment to suicide in a court of law. Forget public perception for a moment. In a court of law, is incredibly difficult to do.
That's correct. It is difficult, and especially look at the stage when CBI gets involved. CBI, even in Arushi case, got involved at a later date. Rhea Khan, a later date. By that time, the water is already thrown from under the bridge. It becomes a very, very difficult task. As far as this case is concerned, it is a case of murder. Prima facie, I think the CBI is going to be investigating that angle of murder. And if it is an angle of murder, there are circumstances here which definitely are going to be, in the interest of justice. CBI is going to be carrying out custodial interrogation of a lot of accused in this particular case to come to the bottom of this case.
You know, I want to go across at this time to the former Joint Director of the Central Bureau of Investigation, Shantanu Sen. He joins us as the first team of the CBI reaches Mumbai to begin this probe. 2 more teams of the Central Bureau of Investigation will be heading to Mumbai as well. Mr. Sen, you've spent a lot of your career in the CBI. It's come in at a time when there's a lot of national attention on the Central Bureau of Investigation. We've seen the Rhea Khan case, we've seen the Arushi Talwar case. proving these charges in a court of law is far trickier than just having these charges bandied about left, right and center. How confident are you, given the stage at which the CBI is entering this probe and all that's happened so far, that the CBI will be ultimately able to establish the answer to that one question that everyone's asking: was Sushant murdered or did he commit suicide?
Look, Rahul, this case was not taken up by the CBI on its own. There was a cry for CBI investigations, and everybody agreed finally that CBI is the proper agency to investigate this case. Now, it's a difficult case. First of all, it's a case of abetment to suicide, but that's not the only charge. There are other charges like confinement, 406, breach of trust, and cheating. So CBI will investigate all the sections. Now, none of us are astrologers. None of us can really predict the end of this investigation. But all we can say is that CBI was considered by all agencies, including Rhea Chakraborty, as the best agency to investigate this case. And CBI has a very good track record of taking over investigations from various states and doing a good job, doing a satisfactory job.
Now, we've seen, Mr. Sen, that there's a demand that's been raised by the family of Sushant Singh Rajput and the lawyers of Sushant Singh Rajput that the CBI should first take Rhea Chakraborty into custody, begin her custodial interrogation, and only then will they be able to establish whether this was a case of murder or not. That if they go the regular route, it will take too much time and it could end up being a dead case. How do you respond to this demand, sir?
CBI is a professional investigating agency with a good track record, a very good name in India. And CBI will go by the evidence available, by the details which they unearthed during the preliminary investigations and the detailed investigations. CBI will decide when to arrest. Nobody, not even the courts in India, can dictate arrest. Remember that. That's absolutely the jurisdiction of the CBI. The desire of arrest in the minds of the lawyers of the family of Sushant Singh Rajput or that of the family of Sushant Singh Rajput can be understood. But CBI will not be moved by just desires. CBI will have to stand up in court and file details of inquiries establishing that the arrest was done for good and proper reasons. If the reasons are not good, you remember when Indira Gandhi was arrested by CBI at the urging of everybody else, the next day she was discharged. CBI cannot repeat that. CBI will collect evidence, CBI will unearth material, CBI will prepare a record before arresting him so that when after 24 hours of the arrest, the magistrate will consider CBI prayer, CBI will be given time to further interrogate. CBI will get proper custody, and CBI will, in my opinion, and what we used to do, we used to arrest so that we could complete the investigation in the next 3 months. In cases of cognizable crime, if the investigation and the charge sheet is not completed within 3 months, the accused gets statutory bail, and then they are out of reach. So CBI is very careful. CBI will interrogate. There are methods of interrogation without apprehension, without custody. Yes, I can understand custodial interrogation is important. Let that be decided by the CBI and not by the lawyers of Sushant Singh Rajput or his friends.
Sure, absolutely. I want to go across, speaking of friends and family, to Anuj Singh. He's a cousin of Sushant Singh Rajput. Sunil Shukla is a gym trainer, friend of Sushant Singh Rajput. Sunil Shukla, to you first. Now that the case has been handed over to the CBI team landing in Mumbai this evening, are you confident that finally there will be justice and we will know the answer to what led to the death of Sushant, whether it was suicide or murder?
Firstly, I'll say now, as the case has been transferred to CBI, this is what we were asking from the day one. 66 days have passed. Now, talking about the flat, I'll just tell you, in Mumbai, the flat, the height of the ceiling and the you talk about the floor, the distance is hardly 9 foot 2 inches. Now, if you talk about Sushant Singh Rajput, I've been working out with him in the gym. His height is 183 centimeter, which is 6 feet. Now the fan, the length I'm saying, it is 1.5. The bed is 18 inch, again 1.5. So here we are saying the 9 foot entirely, if he stands, he's going to touch the fan. And again, when he comes on his toe, it is going to be more. So it's not that he suicided, because I know him personally. Second, it's basically he was murdered and later he was hanged. Why I'm saying this, I know Sushant very closely. Reason, the way he used to talk, he was very ambitious. And second, he would never take this step. He was very dynamic. He was getting offers. He was getting contracts. He was a very lively person, you know. So there's something behind that. Now, Rhea Chakraborty, I think the CBI is best enough to answer on that. That they should be taking her custody, and the other people who were there in the flat. It's like there were people in the building, not in the building, but in the flat. Now, when they're in the flat, something must have gone wrong, or maybe these people were planned by somebody, or they must have done something to him. And in case he raised a voice, they must have killed him. So here, when the CBI has come, I think the CBI knows it. If some or the one person or witness or the accused leaves this country or he goes somewhere, it will be very difficult for them to crack this case.
So I want a word also from Anuj Singh, SSR's cousin. Anuj, आप कॉन्फिडेंट हो कि अब तक जब सीबीआई पहुंच गई है तो कोई ना कोई इसका रेजोल्यूशन होगा, पता चलेगा कि आखिरकार क्या हुआ?
जी 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 जी, मैं कॉन्फिडेंट हूं। सीबीआई सब कुछ खोज लेगी। सीबीआई एक बड़ी संस्था है, बड़ी इन्वेस्टिगेशन संस्था है। इसकी निष्पक्षता पे कोई सवाल ही नहीं उठा सकता। इसका दायरा, ये दूध का दूध, पानी का पानी अलग करके रख देगी। और हमें पूरे परिवार को विश्वास है। हम तो यही मांग कर रहे थे, इतने दिनों से हम लोगों की यही मांग थी। करोड़ों फैंस, करोड़ों उसके चाहने वाले मीडिया कर्मी जिन्होंने इस सत्य की लड़ाई में साथ दिया, उसका हम धन्यवाद करते हैं, साधुवाद देते हैं कि इस लड़ाई में हम लोगों का साथ दिया। पूरा देश आज देख रहा है, सत्य कभी पराजित नहीं हो सकता है। हाँ, समय को बाधित कर सकता है, लेकिन सत्य पराजित नहीं हो सकता है। इसकी कल हम लोगों को रिजल्ट आ गया है।
So there are high hopes that this case will ultimately be cracked, but just the mere act of handing over a case to the CBI is not the same as the case actually being proven in a court of law, a charge sheet being registered, and then ultimately the trial and then the conviction. We'll track this closely. For the time being, I want to thank Shantanu Sen, Vikas Gupta, Daljit Singh, Sunil Shukla, Anuj Singh for joining me on the Newstrack. We'll slip into a break and I'll have more for you when we come back on the other side of a very quick break. You're watching the Newstrack.